As reported on September the 8th, units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces carried out a comprehensive fire strike on command posts of the troops of the aggressor country Russia in the temporarily occupied territory of Donetsk Oblast. Now the General Staff clarified the results of the strikes. It is reported that enemy personnel, including those from the command, were hit during the attack. The command posts of the Center Group of Troops and the 41st Combined Arms Army of the Ground Forces of the Russian Armed Forces came under attack from the Ukrainian military. It is these enemy military formations that are currently operating in the Pokrovsk direction. Before this, on August the 28th, the aggressor country's defense minister, Andrei Belousov, visited the command posts of the Russian troops in this direction. Soon after his visit, the designated locations of the occupation army's command were successfully hit, the statement said. The General Staff noted that strikes on these military targets significantly disrupt the control of units and subdivisions of the Russian armed forces. They also added that the defense forces will continue to strike Russian targets so that the aggressor country stops the war in Ukraine. Recall that on September the 8th, unknown drones and missiles struck occupied Donetsk, Makeyevka, and Kiev. The target of the attack was the former Topaz plant, which had already been attacked in 2023 and 2024. The defense forces of Ukraine have reportedly struck a Russian military base again, despite the facility having been a target on numerous occasions. Recall, Ukrainian forces have cleared Russian troops from the village of Pankivka in the Dobropilya sector of Donetsk Oblast. National Guard's 1st Azov Corps reported that Ukrainian forces have spent the past month pushing Russian troops back after they advanced nearly 10 kilometers toward the strategic Dobropilya-Kramatorsk highway near the embattled city of Pokrovsk. Since late August, Ukrainian units have regained control of several villages in the area. The operation to clear the settlement was conducted jointly by units of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and the National Guard, according to the statement. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue to reinforce their positions in the area, prompting Ukraine to deploy additional reserves to the sector, overseen by the 1st Azov Corps of the National Guard, which comprises 4 infantry brigades and a marine regiment. Ukrainian defense forces are making every effort to halt the enemy's advance and prevent a breach in the defenses, the statement read. Ukrainian forces are closing the gap around the remaining Russian forces in their Dobropilya salient. As Ukrainians finish off pockets of Russian resistance, the Russians' only hope is to surrender to the advancing Ukrainian army or be annihilated completely. After conducting a successful penetration from the high ground in the west, Ukrainians are now launching their attacks from the north as well, completing the pincer around the Russian Dobropilya salient. Euromaidan press media outlet says Ukrainians are using highly trained infantry squads to move in, engaging with Russian forces along the way. The main advantage of the Ukrainians here is their far superior ground lines of communication, enjoying a direct supply line from Kramatorsk and Ruzivka, functioning as central operating hubs for Ukrainian forces in northern Donetsk. The last major Ukrainian advantage is their extensive utilization of heavy drones like the Heavy Vampire and Baba Yaga variants. Because these drones drop heavy explosives or a series of smaller mortar rounds from a height, they are able to fly and hover above the valley, unaffected by the weaker signal strength that Russians suffer from lower to the ground. However, the rounds were not penetrating into the basement where some of the Russians were hiding, so to save manpower, ammunition and time, a Vampire hexacopter drone was called in, Euromaidan press says. The drone then dropped 4 mortar rounds directly on the basement, wiping out the structure and scoring several direct hits into the underground structure itself. Russian infantry attempting to flank Ukrainian attacks from the high ground to the east are also promptly intercepted by Ukrainian FPV drones patrolling the area, as signal strengths are much less disrupted on the high ground and the slopes that the Russians must move across first. In this manner, Ukrainians are systematically moving south. South, having already consolidated full control of Volodymyrivka and expanding the grey zone to fully encompass the Russian salient. Ukrainian soldiers on the ground report that the western pocket has been cleared completely, as their attention is now moving to the one to the east. Euromaidan Press says, every Russian is first offered surrender and to be taken as a prisoner of war. However, if they hold out and refuse, they are promptly dispatched, as Ukrainian forces are much needed elsewhere, and maintaining a tight perimeter costs a lot of resources. Overall, Ukrainians are closing the gates and finishing off any Russian soldiers who remain, as Ukrainian soldiers on the ground are already reporting that the prisoner of war exchange fund is rapidly being replenished. From August the 2nd to September the 14th, Ukrainian drones attacked 13 oil refineries in Russia. The total refining capacity of the attacked oil refineries is about 114.5 million tons per year. Recently, the Ukrainian president emphasized that this was a significant blow to the oil refineries. Volodymyr Zelenski stated that the most effective sanctions are fire at Russian oil refineries. The Kremlin can wage war against Ukraine only by selling gas, oil, and other energy resources, which is why the head of Ukraine thanked the SBU Special Forces, who did a good job in Pokrovsk, since the largest Russian terminal in the Baltic Sea is located there. Ukrainian Special Forces are also targeting the port in Ust-Luga, the Ukrainian president said. Ukrainian drones are already capable of covering distances of thousands of kilometers, Zelensky emphasized. Ukraine has successes not only on the territory of the Russian Federation, but also in Ukraine. Zelensky thanked the soldiers of the 225th Assault Regiment and the 71st Brigade for their successes in the Sumy region. Russia and Ukraine have been engaged in major aerial battles targeting energy and transportation infrastructure as Moscow presses its fierce ground assault in the Ukrainian east in the war's fourth year and tests a type of hypersonic weapon. Attacks on energy infrastructure by both Russia and Ukraine come as United States President Donald Trump has said he is ready to sanction Russia, but only if all NATO allies agree to completely stop buying oil from Moscow and impose their own sanctions. Recently, Ukrainian drones attacked the Kyiv oil refinery in Russia's northwest, one of the country's biggest, sparking a fire when debris fell from a shot-down drone, Russian officials said. As big powers talk about how to end the deadliest conflict in Europe since World War II, the drone war is heating up, with Russian drones downed in NATO member Poland and attacks by Ukraine against the oil refineries and pipelines of Russia, the world's second biggest oil exporter. Surgutneft Gaz's Kyiv Togsyntez refinery, one of the top two refineries in Russia, was attacked by Ukrainian drones, Russian officials said.